Welcome, all you sinners and sodomites, to episode 43 of Bible Stories for Atheists. I'm Josh.
I'm Linz.
We are your guides to the faithfully fucked stories. Wait, I don't think I said that right.
Faithfully fucked up stories or
No.
faithfully fucked?
We are your guides to the... I'm totally blanking. That's how I say it,
Yeah.
right? I have one fucking beer.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. And we are your guides to the faithfully fucked up stories, literally littering the Bible. That was harder than it needed to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking about Joshua part 2.
Yep.
We'll get into that. So that's what we have in store. But we got a few messages from listeners recently, and we thought we would share those in this little intro.
It's my most favorite thing.
Yeah. Why don't you start off with one of them that you were gonna?
Yeah. So we got a review on Apple Podcasts. I like to pop out there every once in a while and see if anyone's left us a review because I'm a narcissist. And actually, I'm just a fat kid who loves attention.
God's not the only one who loves being praised.
The title of the review is Magically Malicious, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And the username, I don't know how this works. If you put in a username or you can just put in whatever you want, but it's D's Gospel Truth.
Yes.
And it says, BSFA is truly a blessing from God. Wink, wink. She wrote out wink, wink. He, she, they. I have tried to read the Bible several times, but could never get too far before I'd be like, stop it, God, you're taking the piss. Which means they're probably across the pond from us.
Right.
Americans do not say taking the piss, although it is a very effective phrase. Stumbled on BSFA close to a year ago now and have been hooked ever since. They led me to explore other such podcasts, only to find that your first is always the sweetest.
Aww.
No one I would rather hear covering the magically malicious stories of the Bible than these two. They actually almost managed to make them bearable. Thank you so much.
It really means a lot, too, because
it really does.
Obviously, they've been listening for a while. If you listen to us for a while, it's very clear that our number one struggle is figuring out how to make this shit interesting enough for people to listen to it.
Yes. There's a lot of times where my reaction, I just want to be like, well, that's fucked up, but I don't really have anything funny to say about it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's fucked up. Yeah. But yeah, that was very nice to hear. So thank you for reaching out to us.
Yes, we love it.
Yeah.
We love all of you.
We had another message from a listener that came through our contact form on our website, bsfa.cc. It says, hello, friends. I don't know if Midwestern heathens are into Legos. We are. But if you are, here's a fun website. It reminded me of your stories, which I very much appreciate. Thanks for doing what you do. And the website that they sent is thebricktestament.com/legacy.html. You need the whole thing for it to work.
Yeah.
And this is not something you're going to want to look up on your phone because it's a pretty old site. But the comic strips in there are absolutely hilarious. And the person who put those together did an amazing job. So it was very funny. So
check it out.
Definitely check it out. Also, we've been getting a lot of new listeners lately. Our numbers keep going up, which is amazing. And so thank you all for sharing and welcome to all the new listeners. Hope you like the show. We've got quite a backlog. We got way better over time.
Yes.
but we've always been plucky. So
I mean, there's some real gold in those first couple of podcasts.
I think so too.
For sure.
Yeah.
The sound quality isn't as good, and Josh's production value has definitely grown exponentially over time.
Yeah.
But we were pretty hilarious.
I think we definitely had some good stuff in the beginning. So anyway, welcome to all of you. And I think that's it. So strap in, strap on for episode 43, Joshua and the Giant Heap. Slancha.
Slencha.
Snancha.
Slencha.
Salencha.
Slencha.
Salencha.
Slencha.
Slancha.
Slencha.
I think I nailed it.
I don't know why you're putting a weird space in between the S and the L.
I was trying to think today about who the snakes were that St.
Pagans.
Patrick drove out.
Pagans.
Was it? I
Yeah.
thought it was Protestants.
I think it's pagans.
Well, at first I was like, is it Protestants or was it Catholics? And then I thought about it for another second.
And you
and I
realize
was
he's
a saint.
Catholic.
Protestants don't really have saints.
So I actually read a little blurb on St. Patrick today. He was born in like Wales or England or something like that, but his father was Roman.
Okay.
And at some point in time in his younger years, he got sold into slavery and was taken to Ireland as a slave.
Mm.
And then God told him to escape, which he did.
Yeah, that's fortunate that God told him that.
And then the people of Ireland asked him to come back to proselytize to them.
Yeah.
And teach them about God.
Mm.
And he is a saint in Ireland because he is the person who basically ushered in the conversion of the pagans and people in Ireland into Catholicism.
Right.
Or Christianity or whatever it was back then.
And that's worked out
for
them?
Obviously not long term.
Right.
But they do credit their conversion to when one of the other areas around Ireland were kind of falling apart. Ireland was doing really well because they had religion, but it was because like the churches and stuff that were set up were doing the work of like preserving books and things like that. So they were working on preserving knowledge and culture in a time when the countries around them or the areas around them weren't doing that.
So what you're saying is they weren't worried about CRT, critical race theory. They weren't worried about banning books or anything like that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And I would imagine, back then the works that they were preserving weren't critical race theory or anything that was controversial. What are the snakes?
I am tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick, who died 1,507, 1,539, or 1,540 years ago, depending on which unreliable source you want to believe, has been adorned with centuries of Irish blarney.
Wait. 1,500 years ago? So like around 500 AD?
1,507 years ago.
Yeah, so okay, so that's very old.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was like closer to like the 1500s.
Oh, no.
Or something.
Way back in when the pagans were still running.
I don't know.
Running that part of the like King Arthur.
I bet there's still some pagans there.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. The facts about St. Patrick are few. Most derive from two documents he probably wrote. The autobiographical confession and the indignant letter to a slave-taking marauder named Coroticus.
Can we just take a second to point out the fact that it's very hard to tell anything about this guy who came 500 years after Jesus?
Right. Yeah. Point taken.
Yeah.
Patrick was born in Britain, probably Wales, around 385 AD. His father was a Roman official. When Patrick was 16, seafaring raiders captured him, carried him to Ireland, and sold him into slavery. The Christian Patrick spent 6 lonely years herding sheep and, according to him, praying 100 times a day. That's a little excessive.
Sounds like somebody's compensating for something.
In a dream, God told him to escape. Good thing, or he wouldn't have thought of it on his own.
Right.
He returned home, where he had another vision in which the Irish people begged him to return and minister to them. "We ask thee, boy, come and walk among us once more," he recalls in the confession. He studied for the priesthood in France, then made his way back to Ireland. He spent his last 30 years there baptizing pagans, ordaining priests, and founding churches and monasteries. His persuasive powers must have been astounding. Ireland fully converted to Christianity within 200 years and was the only country in Europe to Christianize peacefully.
He's like Johnny Appleseed, but if apple seeds were
God.
Yeah.
Patrick's Christian conversion ended slavery, human sacrifice, and most intertribal warfare in Ireland for a while.
Yeah.
Until the Catholics and the Protestants started fighting each other, obviously. He did not banish the snakes. Ireland never had any. Scholars now consider snakes a metaphor for the serpent of paganism.
Mm-hmm.
Nor did he invent the shamrock trinity. That was an 18th century fabrication. A lot of people will associate the three-leaf clover with the Trinity.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
Huh.
According to Thomas Cahill, author of How the Irish Saved Civilization.
That's kind of a mean thing to laugh at, but nonetheless.
Paddy's influence extended far beyond his adopted land. Cahill's book, which could have just as well been titled How St. Patrick Saved Civilization, contends that Patrick's conversion of Ireland allowed Western learning to survive the Dark Ages. Ireland pacified and churchified as the rest of Europe crumbled. Patrick's monasteries copied and preserved classical texts. Later, Irish monks returned this knowledge to Europe by establishing monasteries in England, Germany, France, Switzerland, and Italy. And then they talk about in the rest of the article how obviously the way we celebrate St. Patrick's Day in the United States is not how they celebrate St. Patrick's Day in Ireland.
I wonder what they do.
A quiet religious holiday is what it's called.
It?
Yeah.
A quiet religious holiday?
It took the United States to turn St. Patrick's Day into a boozy spectacle.
That sounds about right.
Irish immigrants and first celebrated in Boston in 1737 and first paraded in New York in 1762. So really, the Irish immigrants kind of used it as a way to celebrate their heritage.
Right. And then everybody co-opted
it.
Yeah.
Like Cinco de Mayo.
I was just going to say it's like Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody do that for 4th of July?
No.
I don't think so.
Nobody fucking cares.
If you're a listener outside of the United States and you go if you've ever heard of anybody going out of their way to celebrate the 4th of July
or Thanksgiving American Thanksgiving. Because I know Canada has its own separate Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Like I can't imagine anybody's actually celebrating it.
America's independence?
Yeah.
No. Why would you?
Yeah.
If you're in England, they still consider it a huge loss. I mean, not the people of England.
Yeah.
Itself.
As a concept.
The Royal England.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it was 500 AD, I think that's before there was Protestants.
Right.
So that's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Aaron go brach.
Aaron go brach.
Brach. Slanche.
That one. So on that note, let's make fun of the Bible.
Hold on. I have one more thing I want to talk about before we get into the Bible. So once again, the Satanic Temple is doing the Lord's work. I think when they made abortion illegal, the Satanic Temple came out and said, well, it's within our religion that abortions are legal.
Right. So, they have a ritual.
Yep. The abortion ritual. So they're doing a fundraiser right now to set up an online clinic. We are proud to announce the launch of TST Health, a religious telehealth abortion clinic in New Mexico, which is one of the states that has outlawed abortion, that will offer discreet telehealth medical abortion care. So this would be
pills.
Yeah. The Samuel Alito's mom's satanic abortion clinic provides medication for safe abortions through the mail to TST members and those who wish to participate in our abortion ritual.
Yeah.
All abortion care for patients in New Mexico will be free, and we hope to extend our services to many outside of New Mexico. So they're doing a fundraiser right now, and I think it's a worthy cause.
Mm-hmm. If I was going to be religious, the Satanic Temple is who would get my religiousness.
So if women's health care and access to safe and legal abortions is important to you, then I would suggest going to the Satanic Temple's website and checking out their fundraiser and donating to it. I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was super cool.
Well, go Satan.
Satan. I think it's funny because, they don't actually align with Satan. That's a Christian ideal. They're not Christians. They're not anti-Christians, but they really play into that idea, I think, to draw people in. Now we can talk about God.
Ugh. Last episode was the first episode where we talked about the book of Joshua.
Yes.
And I felt like I did a disservice to everyone by being ill-prepared for the actual history of the book.
Okay.
You brought up, actually, like, who do people think wrote the book of Joshua, right?
Yep.
So I did some looking into that.
Okay.
So the traditional version of this, i.e. the bullshit version of this.
Okay.
I checked my NIV Study Bible, which is a 2020 edition, so it's up to date. The intro for the book says this: in the judgment of many scholars, Joshua was not written until the end of the period of the kings, some 800 years after the actual events. But there are significant reasons to question this conclusion and to place the time of composition much earlier. So they say that early Jewish tradition said that, much like Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy were believed to be written by Moses, Joshua also wrote his own book. Of course, the same problem pops up that happened with Moses, where Joshua dies at the end of his book.
Right.
So there's at least some lines that definitely weren't written by him.
Yeah, and is Joshua making notes like the rocks are still there to this day?
It's funny you say that. There's also the issue of 12 times throughout the book where the phrase "to this day" is used. So it's very likely. I mean, it's not written by Joshua.
Well,
Joshua didn't probably exist.
No. And
somebody maybe existed with that name.
And if he did, and he did write it, if he was writing it in his elder years, that's still maybe only like 40 years after they crossed that river and put the rocks down.
Yeah. Yeah. The NIV people say that evidence of an early writer is that they seemed familiar with the ancient names of several cities, but that's information that could easily be accessed if you were like a priest or a scribe in charge of archiving old texts, right? Mm-hmm. They also put these events happening in 1406 BCE. We've talked about this in the All About the He Said, She Said bullshit episode, but there's a ton of archaeological evidence showing that Egyptians were occupying the territory as late as 1170 BCE.
Right.
So, and there's nothing about that in the Bible. The likelihood that this was written anywhere back then is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So here's the Wikipedia version. Joshua is the first book in the Deuteronomistic history, which is the story of Israel's conquest of Canaan through to the Babylonian exile, which was about 582 BCE. So the Deuteronomistic history is the books of Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. The prevailing theory right now is that these, along with Deuteronomy, were first written during the time of King Josiah. That was about 640 BCE. Josiah's priest, if you remember, mysteriously discovered a book of law in the temple that no one had ever seen. So you would find that in 2 Kings chapter 22 and in 2 Chronicles chapter 34. There's two versions of the story. So why did they write these? Why did they write these stories? The Wikipedia article on the Deuteronomist, who's like, that's the name of the people who wrote these books.
The D source.
Yeah, the D source. Yep, the Deuteronomist. The version of these writings saw Israel's history as a contrast between God's judgment on the sinful northern kingdom of Jeroboam. So that's the kingdom of Israel in the north, right? Jeroboam, who set up golden calves to be worshipped at Bethel and Dan, and the virtuous Judah, the southern kingdom, where faithful King David had reigned, and where now the righteous Josiah was reforming the kingdom. So there's the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, and Josiah was the king of Judah. This is why these books are so harsh on the north. And the theory also states that these writings were later revised around the time of the exile to include warnings to the kingdom of Judah to not disobey God's commands or something bad will happen, like in exile. Let me just summarize this because it's important. When a king wanted to have more control over his people, he had his priests invent a book of law that he could say was the commands of God. And then years later, when their land was invaded, a bunch of priests rewrote their scriptures to make it seem like God had warned them to be more religious or this would happen. The origins of these writings aren't mysterious. It's just simple, boring, self-serving rules and propaganda.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the
Okay.
kind of the backstory to the book of Joshua.
Cool.
Joshua and his horny blowers.
Ooh.
So Joshua 6 starts like this. Now Jericho was shut up inside and out because of the Israelites. No one came out and no one went in. The Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have handed Jericho over to you, along with its king and soldiers. You shall march around the city, all the warriors circling the city once. Thus you shall do for 6 days, with 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, the priests blowing the trumpets. When they make a long blast with the ram's horn, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and all the people shall charge straight ahead." So that's an amazing military strategy.
Okay, wait. So they got to Jericho and the gates are closed. It's a walled city.
It's a walled city, famously so.
The people in the walls are still the people of Jericho.
Correct.
And so the plan is for them to walk in circles around the walls.
Yeah.
6 times every day.
No, once a day.
Once a day.
For 6 days. And then on the 7th day.
7 times.
You rotate. Yeah, you go around 7 times. And then they're going to blow
horns. And that is going to make the walls fall down.
Well, no, you're missing a step.
Oh, everyone's going to shout.
Everybody's going to shout. Then
the people inside the walls?
If you think that just trumpets is going to make the walls fall down, that's just unrealistic, you know?
After a good, long, horny blow, people usually do shout.
That's true. And something falls down flat.
So the people outside are going to shout, or the people inside?
The people outside. So
are they just going to shout right at the wall? Is it just going to be a bunch of people facing a wall and shouting? I'm picturing it in my head, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. It's kind of like an opera singer who's able to crack a glass.
Right. They just bring a wall down.
Yeah.
Why are they walking in circles? Are they digging a hole? Or are they trying to wear a trench in the ground?
I mean, it's magic, right? Like at the end of the day, there's no other way around this.
Sounds like something Frodo would do.
Our cat, yeah.
He often walks in circles around things that he thinks he owns.
Yeah, like you.
Like me.
And you'll do it endlessly.
Yes.
Yeah. Makes sense to him. I think we've discovered that God is a cat.
I think so.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so interesting. If only that was something that worked to this day.
Right.
But I guess then you would have to be worried about somebody just coming over to your house, walking around it a bunch of times, blowing a horn, and then yelling at your house, and all your walls fall down.
God damn it, Bill.
Waco would have gone way differently.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then Joshua gives out the orders to the people, including this order. To the people, Joshua gave this command: "You shall not shout or let your voice be heard, nor shall you utter a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout." So the ark of the Lord went around the city, circling it once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. So they do that for 6 days in a row, apparently never talking.
Yeah. He really just after 40 years in the desert and dealing with the river, he just wanted everyone to be quiet for a little while.
Fuck up.
I have the worst headache.
Yeah.
We're just going to be quiet. It's quiet time.
Quiet time until we take Jericho.
Yeah. You might accidentally bring the wall down too early if you say anything too loudly.
And you got to remember too, like this is 40,000 fighters,
right?
Which means there's more women and children.
Sure.
Yeah. Like we don't get a total number of people, no matter how many censuses they took over the years. They never. We don't really have a total for how many of the Israelites there are at this point. But
I don't know. It's interesting that he needs them to be quiet. And I don't understand why, because the sound of 40,000 people circling a city is pretty loud.
Right.
It's not like nobody knows they're out there.
Yeah. And then we get the actual Battle of Jericho. On the 7th day, they rose early at dawn and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers we sent. As for you, keep away from the things devoted to destruction, so as not to covet and take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel an object for destruction. Bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold and vessels of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord." So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpets, they raised a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people charged straight ahead into the city and captured it. Then they devoted to destruction, by the edge of the sword, all of the city, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys. It's funny that Rahab gets a call out there.
Yeah. Just in case you guys forgot, this prostitute is with us.
Yeah.
Okay. So question. So they all shouted at the wall. Were they all standing in front of a particular wall and they all shouted at the one wall and that's the wall that fell? Or were they in front of various walls and didn't know what wall was going to fall? And how did some of them get squished by a wall?
I would imagine it fell inward.
You think so?
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I don't think any of it happened. But,
well, obviously not.
And they don't tell. There's no explanation as to like, was it one wall? Was it many walls?
So they just went in and killed everybody.
Yep.
Including
young and old.
Children.
Yep.
Because God told them to.
Right. But God also, apparently, even though
Loves
we never got...
gold.
Apparently, we never actually heard that come from God in this.
Well, no. Joshua loves gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God never said anything about anything being devoted to destruction, But yeah. So all the silver and gold and vessels of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And go in the treasury.
Right. But the other stuff, now I'm not going to tell you which things are devoted to destruction. So you're just going to have to use your best judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
Why kill all the animals? This doesn't make any sense.
It never does. No.
The animals aren't like, we're not going to pull carts for you.
It's because they were also pagans.
Everybody knows all animals are pagan.
Yeah.
So weird.
Actually, I think all animals are atheists. Like, honestly, really.
You don't know that.
I don't think they would have a concept of God.
You don't know that.
I guess I don't know that, but
they might have their little animal gods.
Yeah, that would be really amazing if that was the case. But
no.
And then Joshua does order 2 spies to go to Rahab's house and get her and her family. They do, and they say
gotta be spies.
It might have been the same 2 guys too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They would be the ones who knew where she lived.
Right. I don't know what the point of that red cord was, but that she was supposed to tie in her window. But they do, and they say that her family has lived in Israel ever since. Right. It's again kind of speaking to the propaganda of these writings, because it's interesting to me that they're saying that the only descendants left of these people are the descendants of a prostitute. You know,
Yeah.
it kind of feels like a propaganda racist thing.
Yeah.
Where, you know, but who knows? I
Right.
don't know what the actual history is behind that, but it's just something that strikes me as interesting when it's like, oh, their descendants are still around. You know, the descendants of that prostitute.
Right. Well, not, maybe she had a brother. We're not all of them are descendants of a prostitute. And also, who the hell cares? It's the world's oldest profession.
Yeah, I don't care.
I always think it's crazy when you hear because this isn't the only time in the Bible where they've raided a city and killed everybody in it.
No.
And like no one stops to think like maybe there are people who are living here under oppression and really would like to join our little group of merry men.
Yeah.
And maybe we shouldn't kill everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe we should see if anybody wants to join us and raise our ranks.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, stop killing that baby for a second.
Yeah.
Think about this.
What if we raise it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense because, as you know, famously in any nation where war is happening, there's people who live in a city who don't agree with what's going on there.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be like going into Germany during the time of Hitler and just killing all Germans.
Right.
Even though very famously, I think most Germans at the time weren't in line with what was happening there.
Right. Certainly hope not. Joshua then pronounced this oath, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be anyone who tries to build this city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn he shall lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest he shall set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Weird little thing. But you had asked like if they ever built that city up again and everything. And so according to this, at least, they probably never did.
No, at the cost of 2 children. Why would you?
Right. Yeah.
So as I was thinking about after I ended my last sentence and I was talking about why would they kill everybody? There were people in Germany that didn't believe it. I realized as we were going into the next little section that it made it sound like Jericho were the warmongers and they were being raided because of any reason.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But really it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's nothing said in here. It's been a while since we went through Deuteronomy.
There's no reason
remember.
why they're.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to have killed all these people.
Nothing given besides the fact that God told them to. That's it.
Yeah. Genocide. Massive genocide.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna get that twice in this episode.
Of course.
Yeah. So you want to hear the history of Jericho? The actual history. So the Wikipedia article for Jericho says this: archaeologists have unearthed the remains of more than 20 successive settlements in Jericho, the first of which dates back 11,000 years to 9,000 BCE.
Wow.
Copious springs in and around the city have attracted human habitation for thousands of years. Jericho is described in the Bible as the city of palm trees. And then this is from the article on the Battle of Jericho. Excavations at Tel Es Sultan, which is the actual site, it's the name of the site of Jericho, have failed to substantiate this story, which has its origins in the nationalist propaganda of much later kings of Judah and their claims to the territory of the kingdom of Israel. Right. So the kingdom of Israel falls to the Assyrians, and then the people in the southern kingdom of Judah are like, we have a right to that land. And here's why.
Right.
And here's a story
about how we took over this land and killed everybody.
And God wants us to have it. Right.
Including all of the riches.
Right. Yeah.
None of the other stuff.
Yeah. The lack of archaeological evidence and the composition, history, and theological purposes of the Book of Joshua have led archaeologists like William G. Dever to characterize the story of the fall of Jericho as, quote, invented out of whole cloth, unquote. So there's also radiocarbon dating that puts the destruction at Jericho in either the 17th or 16th centuries BCE, hundreds of years before this supposedly happened. Basically, they did, in fact, find walls, but they had fallen down hundreds of years before the story. Italian archaeologist Lorenzo, and I'm just going to spell his last name, Nigro, says there's some evidence.
Nigro.
Yeah, sure. Says that there's some evidence of settlement around the 14th and 13th centuries, but he also rejects that this lends any credence to the story of the book of Joshua. It doesn't change that the walls fell hundreds of years earlier. Again, it's all about propaganda and declaring divine rights to land.
Of course. Isn't there a really happy poppy Bible song that's about the destruction of Jericho?
Probably. I can't remember.
I feel like I remember hearing like a kid's song where they talk about the walls of Jericho and stuff like that and how God and oh God, I'll have to figure it out.
Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, and the walls came a-tumbling down.
Then they killed everyone.
It's crazy. It's this poppy little, like, I remember this not this version, but like that is the tune that I remember. And it's a kid's song.
Yeah.
About mass genocide.
Right. Yeah.
If that's not propaganda, I don't know what is.
If that's not grooming,
right.
I don't know what is.
Right.
Yeah. It's fucked up that you teach kids that.
Right.
And you don't give them the actual story.
No.
You're really setting them up to live a life where
they think nothing bad happens if you're a good Christian.
Get my ire up.
Getting your cockles up.
Yeah. Do you want to have a lasting memorial to significant moments in your life?
Wouldn't you like the perfect monument to remember when you were married, when a child was born, or when you committed a holy genocide?
You need a commemorative stone heap.
Are statues too structured?
Are plaques too specific?
Then you want a commemorative stone heap.
My great-granddaddy sold his first commemorative stone heap about 345 years ago.
And it's still there to this day.
These heaps last so long. How long would you say they last, Linz?
At least days.
That's days with an S, folks. One day you'll be looking at your heap and be like, yep, still there.
Still there to this day.
All these days later.
One day, your child can look at a stone heap and ask you why it's there.
And you can tell them it's to remember all those children God told you to kill because their parents were vaguely evil.
No, that one is to remember the guy God said to hang.
It is? Then what's that one over there?
That's the one for when Frodo turned 8 years old.
Why would I have gotten a heap of stones to remember the cat turning 8 years old?
That's what I said when you set it up. It's not even like an accomplishment. Most cats live beyond 8 years old.
We've got igneous stones. We've got sedimentary stones. We've got metamorphic stones.
You can put them in your garden, in your kitchen, or in your bed.
But whatever you do, you cannot arrange them in any other pattern. It must be a heap.
Use promo code BSFA at checkout to get 10% better stones.
Commemorative stone heaps are only available in the continental United States, the only country where you can find monuments to Civil War losers, the Founding Fathers, RoboCop, and Rocky. IEIEO. But the Israelites broke faith in regard to the devoted things. Achan of the tribe Judah took some of the devoted things, and the anger of the Lord burned against the Israelites. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, east of Bethel, and said to them, "Go up and spy out the land." And the men went up and spied out Ai. Then they returned to Joshua and said to him, "Not all the people need to go up. About 2,000 or 3,000 men should go up and attack Ai. Since they are so few, do not make the whole people toil up there." So about 3,000 of the people went up there, and they fled before the men of Ai. The men of Ai killed about 36 of them, chasing them from outside the gate as far as Shebarim and killing them on the slope. The hearts of the people melted and turned to water.
I'm confused about what's happening in this passage.
Right. So, first of all, the town's name is spelled AI, but according to a Christian video I found on this, it's pronounced IE or just I. They couldn't seem to make up their mind, the Christian video. Like they kept going back and forth on it. So I went with IE. So what's happening is we start off with that story about the
somebody took some
stuff that was supposed to be destroyed from Jericho.
And God's rage burned.
Yeah.
But then that was end of sentence.
Yep.
Not to be brought up again.
No, it will come up again.
Oh, okay.
Next paragraph, though, is then Joshua sends those guys into IE, and then...
So God's rage is happening. Separate from that, they sent some guys to IE to scope it out. They said only send 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Right. And so they did.
And then 36 of them got killed.
Right. And they fled.
Because 36 of them got killed?
Right.
There's thousands of them.
Yeah. I know. This is which is something I was going to bring up. So yeah, the idea is God is allowing them to fail because of this guy who took that stuff.
I see.
Yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right. It's weird that they ran when only 36 of them died.
It's such a small percentage.
It really is. Yeah. So what a lot of folks don't realize about Joshua is he is actually like a brilliant general.
Okay.
Like, and he's really fucking tough. So he's not going to he's got 40,000 men. Like we said, this is less than 0.1% of his fighting force that has just been killed and stuff. So it's not like he's going to lose perspective.
Right.
And over something that's like a relatively small defeat.
Sure.
Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the ground on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening, he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. Joshua said, "Oh, Lord God, why have you brought this people across the Jordan at all? To hand us over to the Amorites so as to destroy us? Would that we have been content to settle beyond the Jordan. Oh, Lord, what can I say now that Israel has turned their backs to their enemies? The Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it and surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name?" Literally, one setback, and he turns into a blubbering fucking mess.
A small setback.
Yes.
More of
setback.
them probably have died from communicable diseases.
More of them probably were born in that time.
Yeah.
I
really would. These are the points where I really wish this was more like the first books of the Bible we were going through, where God was talking to them all the time.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody talked to God, he would respond.
Mm-hmm.
Because my guess is he's not going to respond.
Oh, no, he is.
Oh,
you want to hear what God has to say about this?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. The Lord said to Joshua, "Stand up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant that I imposed on them. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have acted deceitfully, and they have put them among their own belongings. Therefore, the Israelites are unable to stand before their enemies. They turn their backs to their enemies because they have become a thing devoted for destruction themselves. I will be with you no more unless you destroy the devoted things from among you. In the morning, therefore, you shall come forward tribe by tribe. The tribe that the Lord takes shall come near by clans. The clan that the Lord takes shall come near by households. And the household that the Lord takes shall come near one by one. And the one who is taken as having the devoted things shall be burned with fire, together with all he has, for having transgressed the covenant of the Lord and for having done an outrageous thing in Israel."
That's not the same God from back in the day who would have been like, shut up. Like, 36 people died. Calm down.
Right. Yeah.
Instead, it's like, somebody took some shit. And until I figure out who it is, it's like such a mom move. I mean, we literally were watching Malcolm in the Middle earlier, and this is exactly what their mom would have done.
Right.
And then, like, everybody stands before me, and once I weed you out, then you can leave until I get down to the one person who's done it, and then I'm going to set them on fire.
Right.
They stole stuff from, the people we killed. Their stuff should just rot on the ground.
Unless it's gold and silver.
And then that's mine.
Right.
I get that. Also iron, I think.
And bronze.
And bronze. Those things. I get all those things. You get nothing. You marched around a city for a day. You marched around a city for a bunch of days. You marched around a city 7 times in one day. And then you yelled at some walls. And you know what you get for that? Nothing.
It's basically it, yeah. And
if you take something, I will know.
Right. And I'll kill 36 of you.
Yes, and then set you on fire.
Right.
Talk about a bit of an overreaction because some kid somewhere picked up a toy they wanted to play with.
Right. Yeah. So then in the morning, Joshua starts bringing Israel near, quote unquote, tribe by tribe. It doesn't say near what?
God?
Doesn't say.
He's hanging out in his God cloud?
My best guess is it's the tabernacle,
Mm,
but it's not stated.
yeah.
Either way, the tribe of Judah was, quote unquote, taken. Not sure what taken means here, but I looked up the Hebrew words used here for taken and saw that the same word was reused in 1 Samuel 10. And in that case, they were like casting lots. And if the lot fell on you, then you were taken. So maybe that's what they're, so maybe that's what they're doing here is casting lots with each one.
Yeah.
And
so all the tribes came and he was like, it's someone from the tribe of Judah.
yeah,
And then he's going to go by the clans.
right.
And then he'll take
And then household.
Then he'll take a clan.
Right.
And then he'll go by the household. And then he'll take an household.
Yeah.
And then he'll go through them one by one until he
Finds.
I don't know, guesses which one it is.
Ambiguity is a clear indicator to the perfection of the Bible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It would be really nice to know how God figured out which one it was. It would be a useful tool for people
Right.
to know how to identify a thief in their midst.
Yeah.
But, God just knows things.
Right. Yeah. Anywho, they go through the whole process.
Why do they have to be brought in front of him for him to know that? Shouldn't he just fucking know who did it?
Yeah.
Couldn't he just be like, hey, this dude over here did it. Bring him over here. Why do they all have to fucking parade in front of him? It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of time.
I know. Why did they have to fucking parade around the fucking city?
Well, yes, of course.
God of the book of Joshua loves parades. That's the best thing.
He loves a parade and some shouting and some horns. But like maybe the only reason that to do that is to put fear into everybody so that they don't do it. But really, God should know exactly who it was.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He knows somebody took something.
Right.
So
can't figure out which one though.
Right.
Yeah.
All of them look the same.
Right. After 40 years in the day, you can't even tell men from women,
It was one of
They have all been sandblasted smooth.
I would like to say I know which one it is. And when you get close to me, I'll be able to figure it out. But from afar, y'all just look like ants.
Right. Anyway, so they go through the whole process and they narrow it down to this guy, Achan, right?
Achan?
Achan.
Achan?
Achan.
Like 4chan, but Achan?
But Achan,
Okay.
I guess.
The original 4chan?
Achan, maybe. I already recorded it, so it's Achan. Then Joshua said to Achan, "My son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel and make confession to him. Tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me." And Achan answered Joshua, "It is true. I am the one who sinned against the Lord God of Israel. This is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful mantle from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels. Then I coveted them and took them. They now lie hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. They took them out of the tent and brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and they spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua and all of Israel took Achan with the silver, the mantle, and the bar of gold, with his sons and daughters, with his oxen, donkeys, and sheep, and his tent and all that he had, and they brought them up to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, "Why did you bring this trouble on us? The Lord is bringing trouble on you today." And all Israel stoned him to death. They burned them with fire, cast stones on them, and raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his burning anger. Therefore that place to this day is called the Valley of Achor. I don't know if they understood how names worked, but
It's probably Achan,
maybe
right?
Ahor?
Achan and Ahor,
Ahor? I don't know.
right? I'm just thinking of the way Hanukkah.
The Valley of Ahor.
Ahor.
Yeah.
They killed his children?
Apparently, what's interesting about how this is written right at the end here, it says all Israel stoned him to death, him. Then it says they burned them with fire,
Yeah.
cast stones on them, and raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day.
How are they gonna be able to tell those two stone piles apart?
Right. Yeah.
Are those the river stones or are those the Achan stones?
Achan stones. Yeah, it's so yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It sure sounds like they killed his kids.
It definitely sounds like they killed it. This Bible is full of child murder left and right.
Oh yeah.
Alive child murder.
Right. Yeah.
Just because it's not their fault their dads did something stupid.
No. You would think God would know that.
Where's their mom? They didn't mention a wife.
No.
She's now she's a widow and all of her children are dead.
They took everything except his wife. Yeah.
Well, that's a real sad, fucked up tale.
Yeah. It's about to get better. Not really. Also, we defeated Atlantis. And we get this. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear or be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and go up to Ai. See, I have handed over to you the king of Ai with his people, his city, and this land. You shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may take its spoil and plunder its livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush against the city behind it." So Joshua and all the fighting men set out to go up against Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 warriors and sent them out by night with the command, "You shall lie in ambush against the city behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you stay alert. I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. When they come out against us as before, we will flee from them. They will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city, for they will say, 'They are fleeing from us as before.' While we flee from them, you shall raise up from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. And when you have taken the city, you shall set the city on fire, doing as the Lord has ordered. See, I have commanded you."
The Lord didn't command to set the city on fire.
No.
He commanded you to take all the stuff from the city.
Right.
Also, can 30,000 people sneak up on a city?
I mean, that's one thing I was kind of thinking of when I was going through this too. Is like, I have no idea what the topographical nature of this area is. Like,
right.
Was there a place for people to hide? Or, like, to me, I'm just picturing like a city in the middle of desert.
Yeah.
But that might not be, like, it's very the Levant area is full of like mountains and stuff like that.
Okay. So I guess they could hide behind
It-
a mountain. But
Yeah.
they tried to attack them once already.
Yeah.
So the people in the city, the leader of the city, if they should be on alert. It's not every day like someone rolls up on them with a couple thousand people. They kill 36 of them and then leave and never come back. So I would imagine they would be expecting them to come back.
They were probably surprised that they ran away after only 36 of them were killed.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
Am I wrong though? God didn't tell them to burn the city.
No, you're not wrong, but that is neither here nor there. Apparently, Joshua throws that stuff in there, but like apparently it's like, oh, it's just that didn't get written down about God saying it.
He didn't say pillage and then burn.
No.
He just said burn. But God told them to pillage.
Right. And they will pillage.
Oh, okay.
And also burn.
I don't know. I
Like
feel
they
like
do it.
sometimes
They
you have
do
to
both at the same
I
time.
feel like you have to spell it out real clear for these people.
Right. Yeah.
That, like first pillage, then burn.
Yeah.
Not burn, then pillage.
Yeah. The way Joshua throws stuff in there, it's almost like Joshua is God here, you know? Weird thing there.
Yeah.
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 I feel like Moses did that too, though.
Of course. I mean, if you were the person God was talking to,
Yeah.
wouldn't you use that to your advantage?
I would just totally do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what all cult leaders do.
It's almost like it's part of human nature.
Yeah. That's
weird.
That's what they all do.
Almost like, yeah.
That's how all the cult leaders
And almost all religious leaders, it seems
manage to have
like.
sex with so many people.
Yeah. So this time they get to keep the loot and they're going to pretend to retreat after attacking so the rest of the troops can ambush them. It's an amazing strategy. Nobody's ever thought of this.
Maybe not back then, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. So this next one, just so you know, it's the longest reading, but it's also the lastest reading.
Okay.
So,
Longest and lastest.
yes. In the morning, Joshua rose early and mustered the people and went up with the elders of Israel before the people to Ai. So they stationed the forces. The main encampment was north of the city and its rear guard west of the city. Joshua went that night into the valley. When the king of Ai saw this, he and all his people, the inhabitants of the city, hurried out early in the morning to the meeting place facing the Arabah to meet Israel in battle. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel made a pretense of being beaten before them and fled in the direction of the wilderness. So all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them. And as they pursued Joshua, they were drawn away from the city. There was not a man left in Ai who did not go out after Israel. They left the city open and pursued Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Stretch out the sword that is in your hand towards Ai, for I will give it into your hand." And Joshua stretched out the sword that was in his hand toward the city. As soon as he stretched out his hand, the troops in ambush rose quickly out of their place and rushed forward. They entered the city, took it, and at once set the city on fire. So when the men of Ai looked back, the smoke of the city was rising to the sky. They had no power to flee this way or that, for the people who fled to the wilderness turned their back against the pursuers. When Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city and that the smoke of the city was rising, then they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. And all the Israelites came out from the city against them. So they were surrounded by Israelites, some on one side and some on the other. And Israel struck them down until no one was left who survived or escaped. But the king of Ai was taken alive and brought to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the open wilderness where they pursued them, all Israel returned to Ai and attacked it with the edge of the sword. The total of those who fell that day, both men and women, was 12,000, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the sword until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel plundered for themselves, according to the word of the Lord that he had issued to Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. And he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until the evening. And at sunset Joshua commanded, and they took down his body from the tree, threw it down at the entrance of the gate of the city, and raised over it a great heap of stones, which stands there to this day.
So many heaps of stones.
So many things
And-
still standing to this
And a
day.
smoldering city, still smoldering to this day, like it's Silent Hill.
Yeah. This thing would be so much better if it was zombies.
If we modernized this tale, and this was a story about a guy going from city to city, killing everybody in the city for no discernible reason, they would be tried at the Hague for war crimes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this isn't cool. This
No.
is who you're named after.
Yeah.
What was your mother thinking?
Yeah.
He's a warmonger.
If I remember right, my grandma had a dream that I would be named Joshua. And
Yep.
then look what happened.
Yeah.
I think she had a dream, and then she probably told that to my mom, and then they named me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Either way, it is a strange person to name your child after.
yeah.
Hearing these stories,
Yeah.
because he killed a lot of people,
You did.
a lot for
Well,
again.
My
no,
parents thought I was going to kill a lot of people.
okay. You still
soon
time.
As soon as I was born, they're like, "Oh, he's a murderer."
Yeah, there's still time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange.
Well, remember, you're not really a murderer if you're doing it for the Lord.
Well, that's just patently not true.
No.
Was there ever like a discussion from God that's like, here's why you need to kill all these people? Is
Nope.
it just that they're like in their land?
Yeah. So
There's like no opportunity for them to even leave.
yeah.
Like if you went to the city and was like, we're going to murder everybody, but you have 5 days to get the fuck out
Right.
and not be murdered. I imagine, especially if you did this to the second city after
Yeah.
murdering a whole first city, they would probably just leave.
Yeah. So the common thing that Christians say about these people, the Canaanites, right, which is a very generic term for the people who were talking, like the Israelites were
The
Canaanites.
people who lived in the area.
Yeah, that was Israelites. Israelites were also Canaanites. They lived there,
Mhm.
and then they decided to claim the land,
Right.
basically. And there's more to it. You can listen to that episode,
Right.
all about the he said she said bullshit episode. But the thing that a lot of Christians will say about the Canaanites is that they were so evil. They were so evil. They would commit child sacrifice, and that's always the big thing about the Canaanites, is that they would commit child sacrifice. And that's why God wanted to wipe them out.
So the answer to that is killing all of the children.
Yeah.
That
To wipe
isn't-
them off the face of the earth, to make sure that the virus of the Christians don't like viruses. But here's the thing though. It was the story of Abraham and Isaac.
Yep.
When he's going to sacrifice Isaac.
Yep.
We talked about how there's a very clear sign that when he gets saved by the angel of the Lord, that was actually added later. Suddenly the new character shows up, which was the angel of the Lord in the
Mhm.
story, and the name of God changes from Elohim to Yahweh,
Mhm.
if I remember correctly. Just very suddenly, right in this one section where the angel shows up to say, hold on, don't kill your son. Actually, just kill this goat or whatever it is that's over in
Right.
the bush there. And then at the very end, the last line of the story is saying that Abraham goes back to his servants down at the bottom of the mountain, and it doesn't say anything about Isaac again. And so that original story very likely
Child sacrifice.
was child sacrifice, was a
Right.
story about child sacrifice, and it became uncouth. So later editors decided to change that story so that it wasn't actually about child sacrifice, and God saves Isaac and all that stuff. So,
right.
so when they talk about this kind of stuff about the child sacrifice of the Canaanites and stuff like that, there might be validity to it, but it's not like the Israelites necessarily had their hands clean on that too. Like they were
Right.
from this culture also.
Yeah.
So,
well, also the solution to a couple people or a culture doing child sacrifice isn't to kill everybody in that culture, including the children.
right. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
No.
It doesn't. And again, fucking modern Christians, man, all up in everybody's business about what you can and cannot do. And it's like, I don't know, your beliefs are based on like a whole thing. With lots of murder.
Right.
Mass genocide. But
yeah. It's amazing though how they've turned that into, much like St. Patrick's Day, they've turned that from something that's like supposed to be solemnly contemplated and like it's a cultural thing. This is like, if you're Jewish, I'm not trying to speak for Jewish people. This is my understanding of what it would be like to be Jewish, I guess is what I'm saying.
With your very minimal knowledge.
Yes, exactly. But I feel like if I was Jewish, I would probably look at it like, it's something to be contemplated. It's something to be, to consider that this is part of, your history, the history of your people. So you're going, and you're going to just recognize it for what it is, kind of. You're going to have a very different relationship to your religion and to God than what Christians have turned it into.
Right.
Is I guess what I was trying to say with that.
I guess. But also, I just wish more Christians would talk about how a lot of their beliefs are based on just a lot of killing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
because it's antithetical to where they've ended up.
Right.
With it. Yeah.
And we know historically that that's true. Even outside of the Bible, Christianity is the number one cause of death, historically speaking.
Big reason for genocide.
Yeah. I mean, lots of holy wars throughout the years that caused a lot of death. This is not something I ever learned. And yes, I'm not a good example because I've only ever dabbled in church. But no one I know who's religious, I've never heard them bring up, especially the ones who are anti-abortion, anti-vaccine, anti-healthcare, I don't know, being told what to do.
Yeah.
None of them, I hear none of them talk about their history of the book I believe in is just full of murder.
Child murder.
Yeah. Just all kinds of murder. Well,
yeah.
Female murder, child murder, animal murder, innocent men murder, just murder. It should be called the Book of Murder.
And when they're not murdering, they're taking slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking people if they can. Hoarding the wealth.
Oh, I thought you meant literally.
Taking their shit?
Yeah.
No.
I was like, I don't remember this story.
If they I wish that was a story in the Bible.
Yeah. I was like, is this about the Golgotha demon? Or you want to hear about the history of IE real quick?
IE.
If you look up the Wikipedia article for IE, so again, it's AI, and then it's specifically in parentheses, Canaan.
Right. Because
Canaan.
Because if you just look up AI, you might just get the article for artificial intelligence.
There are so many articles around AI, being different things, a bunch of different stuff. It's really hard to find, but you can eventually find this article. No one knows for sure where the site of the city is, but there's a place archaeologists seem to believe is the most likely spot, and it's called Et Tel. It's about 1.5 miles from Bethel, which we remember hearing about from the story of Jacob. The problem is that this place, Et Tel, was destroyed more than 1,000 years before this story is supposed to be taking place. There's a bunch of theories around this, but ultimately there's no evidence that this battle happened the way or when it was written. But there is one really telling detail that hints to this whole story being bullshit, and they were just taking credit for a city that had been long demolished. And that thing is, the name IE means the ruin.
Oh.
So very likely, as far back as anyone who was writing this knew, this place had always been destroyed. And so they just told this story that God helped them destroy it, and therefore they deserve to own the land.
I see.
Yeah. Again, it always comes back to property rights.
For real.
Yeah.
All a problem to this day.
I know it is. It is.
not to be controversial, but it's my understanding that there's still an issue over there today.
Yeah.
how do you feel knowing that you were named very specifically after this character?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I feel any differently about it.
No. It's so fucked up, though.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up. There's so many names in the Bible.
Yeah.
Why would you name your child? I'm sorry, Jill. I know you listen to these, but why would you name your child after somebody who killed so many people? It's like she could have named you Adolf, and it would have been the same fucking thing.
Oh, I don't think Joshua killed that many people. Also, they weren't Jews that he was killing. Well, although
I mean, technically,
again, the Canaanites are coming from the same place that the Israelites.
Yeah.
Are. So I don't know, but yeah, and you had said earlier, you were talking about, nobody ever talks about this, that there's so much killing stuff. They don't know, like,
because they don't read the Bible.
So many Christians, I swear to God, don't know, or they have this weird they have the fucking children's songs in their heads.
Yeah.
That's the shit that they get imprinted on them. So they'll read this. They might read this at some point, but they're not going to really understand it. They're not going to, they'll have the tough thoughts that come up and hurt their heads. And and I say that as somebody who went through it.
Yes. Well, and I was going to say, it sounds like we're making fun, but with what's going on in the world today, how people are trying to keep schools from teaching their kids about bad things that happen in the history of America really kind of plays to that idea where, like, people don't want to think about bad shit that happened in the past.
Yeah.
But and it's proved itself to be true time after time. If we can't investigate and learn from our past, then we're doomed to repeat them.
Right. They chalk it up to the shit they've been taught that, they were child sacrificers. Stuff like that. So therefore they had to kill all their kids.
Well, I assume that story is only told when people actually ask that question, which I can't imagine it comes up too often. Maybe an intrepid youth every once in a while who really gets in the Bible is like, hey, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Why is there so much death in the book of Joshua? I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of death. They were killing babies.
I always would have probably heard that it was different times back then, it was a different culture, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, yeah, but isn't that what God was for?
Right.
Isn't that literally the purpose
of
what God was supposed to be transcendent over the culture and stuff, to improve the people.
God shouldn't change with culture.
Right. Exactly. And God clearly has. God clearly changes with culture from Genesis to Joshua, and then drastically from the Old Testament to the New Testament.
Right.
The very nature of God is changed dramatically.
Yep.
And then you get to Revolution. Then you get to Revelation when he goes back to killing everybody.
Right. Yeah. I
think that's it. There's more.
There's more Joshua.
There's more Joshua.
Yeah.
There's more Josh.
Is there more killing?
Yeah. These are the big two, though.
Okay.
In the book, as I understand it. So I think next episode we'll talk about some more, but it's going to be like smaller stories.
Rock on. Pile of rocks on.
Great heap of rocks.
Yeah, that are still there to this day. Why would you write that in a book? I'm so sorry.
Still there to this day.
I guess I can't imagine they expected that people today to be reading it.
That's the fucked up thing as I go through this. It's like, there's no way they thought that this was going to keep getting read for thousands of fucking years.
Right. Nobody uses, and it's still there to this day. Without contemplating, like, oh yeah, maybe in the next 20, 30 years, people will be reading this story and then it'll go away.
Right. Yeah.
Not
it'll
thousands.
get overwritten just like the stories I'm overwriting by doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
It's really crazy too when you think about this is going off on a tangent, but I keep going back to there's this town called Ugarit, which is north of Israel. Archaeologists found like 3,000 tablets there that were religious writings, right? And it's like songs, like hymns and stuff like that, but it's also like written stories. And this is where like there's stories of Yahweh being married to Asherah,
right?
Who was the goddess wife of El, the original Semitic god of the area. So anyway, so you see stuff like that, and you're like, "There's." I think where I was going with this is all the fragmentation of
Yeah.
these beliefs, that you just see all these fragments over the years. And it's like, of course they thought that they were going to get overwritten. Like there's millions of different kinds of religious beliefs out there.
Right.
Even back then there was. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, and they were being written by the people in power, and they knew they were overwriting
yeah.
the previous version
Yeah.
of the
And
people.
it stayed convenient for the people who came after them.
Yep.
That's the only thing I can think of is
Right.
when it stays convenient for the people who come after,
Yeah.
for the people in power who come after.
You got the Romans involved.
Yeah. Once you got the Romans, then
it
that's
really just
cemented it in.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Real weird.
I often wonder what Judaism would look like today if it wasn't for Christianity getting picked up by the Romans. It's just like, and it might be doing totally fine. It might be totally the same, but it's just an interesting thing. Like I kind of wonder if they got some favoritism there a little bit, because Christians have always been a little like kind of in favor of Jewish people, but kind of not at the same time.
What?
I know it's a weird thing when you're in Christianity, because they often will talk about, Jewish people being like almost like brothers and sisters in faith and stuff like that. But at the same time,
It's like,
they're
but they're
not,
wrong.
but they're
they're
wrong.
doing it wrong. Yeah.
But yeah. They have no idea what they're doing.
The people who originated the religion are
Yeah.
doing it wrong. That
Right.
is a very Christian thing to believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's be done with this bullshit.
I know. And they all lived miserably ever after. And they're still there to this day. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. Help us share the good news by sending this to a friend or leaving a review to help others find us. And if you want to support us with a donation, you can do that on our website at bsfa.cc. So strap in, strap on for episode 43, Joshua and the Giant Heap.
Get it? That's a joke on James and the Giant.
It does kind of need an explanation,
Got it?
doesn't it?
Do you get it?
Yeah. Please like us.